Going through the top edge rushers for the Buccaneers in the 2025 NFL Draft, that and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this episode of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listener view every day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can follow along on Twitter. I am James Yarcho at JYarcho_Bucs, credentialed member of the media covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, here with you every Monday through Friday along with the everydayers. And for that, I want to share my appreciation for your continued support of the show. One of the ways you can support the show is become a Locked On Bucs insider. You're going to get news, rumors, updates, general thoughts, one-on-one conversations with me via text message. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes to become an insider today. Over the next few shows, I'm going to be breaking down my top fits for the Buccaneers at different positions, and here is how this is going to work. There are going to be somewhere between 5 and 10 players depending on the position that will span the course of the entire draft. That means I'm not just talking about day one and day two guys. I'm talking about guys that could be available for the Bucs at pick 235 in the 7th round. And I want to make something very, very clear. Just because I don't name a player does not mean that I don't think that they're a good player or that the Bucs shouldn't draft them. It simply means that I don't think the Bucs will be in a position to draft them. For example, we are starting this positional focus with edge defenders. I am not going to spend any time talking about Abdul Carter. Obviously, Abdul Carter is an incredible prospect, and he's going to be the first defensive player taken in the draft. But that's why I'm not talking about him. The Bucs have no chance to draft him, so I'm not going to waste your time. The goal of this is to give you all a lot of different players that you can start to become familiar with in the event that Tampa drafts them. So I'm going to focus on a couple of names for day one, a couple for day two, some for day three. And let's start off with my top day one options for the Bucs, beginning with Boston College's Donovan Eziraku. So Eziraku is a guy that I've talked about a lot on this show, and for good reason. I think that he and the next guy that I'm going to talk about are the top two edge rushers that the Bucs will be able to get in the first round. In the case of Eziraku, his explosive 2024 has him in this position. Now, Eziraku finished as PFF's 17th best edge rusher in 2024, but finished just 114th in 2023. That's a pretty meteoric rise in one season until you look at the fact that he was the 46th ranked edge rusher as a freshman in 2022. He's a little bit small for an edge rusher at 6'2", 250, but he has the speed that you want off the edge to get into the backfield and disrupt things. He has a RAS score of 8.14 with the negatives coming from his size. His explosion grade is great. His composite ability grade is elite. He's just undersized, which could certainly cause problems at the next level. He didn't run the 40 at the combine, but did clock a 4.62 40 at his pro day. Unfortunately, I couldn't find the 10-yard split, which is what I feel is most important at this position. But this is a guy coming off of a 14-sack season after having just 2 in 2023. But in 2022, he had 8 sacks to go along with 23 hurries and a batted pass. His pass rush win rate is an 18.2. And that means that he wins his battles nearly 1 out of every 5 snaps. He's as sure of a tackler as you're going to find at the edge position in this draft. High IQ, does not take plays off, does not loaf. You get an all-out effort on every snap that he is on the field. And he does a great job of utilizing his arm length to gain an advantage and help overcome his lack of size. The next guy that I'm going to talk about is James Pierce Jr. Now, this is a player out of Tennessee that I didn't think would make it to the Bucs, but character concern stories floating around have caused a drop in his draft stock. I did a show a few weeks back talking about those concerns. I'm not going to rehash all of that, but came to the conclusion that there doesn't seem to be much outside of, I came across an arrest that he had in 2023. That was an incident where he was speeding while driving with a suspended license in a car with expired tags, and that he failed to provide identification and insurance. That all added up to misdemeanor charges that ultimately were all dropped after he paid a fine and provided proof that he had a license. Outside of that, I can't really see anything off the field that causes character concerns. I talked on that episode about his teammates, his coaches saying nothing but wonderful things about him. And all of that said, I trust in the Bucs leadership in that locker room and in the front office and in the coaching staff to absorb any of those character concerns and be able to get him on track. All of that aside, he is one heck of a football player. My goodness. PFF's 27th ranked edge rusher in 2024, 12th in 2023. His size is certainly more on par with NFL players than Ezraku's is. He's 6'5", 250, and he has 21 sacks over the last 2 years to go along with 71 hurries and 2 batted passes. His pass rush win rate is 23.0. So he's winning a quarter of his snaps at the line of scrimmage. That's absolutely insane and way better than what the Bucs are able to offer right now. He's not great on run defense. He's definitely not as good in that aspect as Donovan Ezraku is, but he's not a liability either. He can continue to develop that aspect of his game. It's not going to be an Achilles heel when he's on the field, but he's already got an arsenal of pass rush moves that he could use effectively, and he did use them effectively over the last 2 years. His strength puts him in good positions to win battles with opposing tackles. A RAS score of 9.40. He did get knocked for his weight, but outside of that, he brings elite speed, a 4.47 40 with a 1.56 10-yard split. His explosion grade was considered good. The biggest advantage that he has is his explosion off the line, where his first steps are talked about as some of the quickest in the draft over the course of the last few years. That gives him an advantage right out of the gate, and then he's able to use his strength and that pass rush move arsenal that I talked about to beat his blocker, who he generally already has on their heels from the snap because of the quick feet. As a stand-up rusher, Pierce has the skills to be a Pro Bowler, potentially even an All-Pro, but he can also put his hand in the dirt and come after you from a three-point stance. So imagine, if you will, a situation where the Bucs could be in the envious position of being able to have Kancey, Vea, and Pierce line up with their hands in the dirt and then still bring Yaya Diaby and Hassan Reddick off of the edges. That is honestly terrifying to think about if you're an offensive coordinator or an offensive lineman that the Bucs are going to have to face this season. Pierce is a dude that can do it all. He has done it all. And while he does have that slightly concerning floor of those character concerns that could kind of take him out and not allow him to realize his full potential, he does legitimately have all the tools, all the attributes, all the skills that you're looking for a guy whose ceiling is an all-pro edge rusher. That's not something that the Bucs have had on their roster in quite some time. Those are my top 2 fits in the first round, but I'm going to look at some day 2 prospects, including one that could be a choice in the first round, depending on how things shake out. That's coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. Post your job. LinkedIn's new feature can help you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. Here's a pro tip: adding the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to double your reach to qualified candidates. It's no wonder that 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helps them find high quality hires. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every single day. For your second listen, check out Locked On NFL Draft with Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez. Now that the season is over, get the latest draft rankings, rumors, and news every day. Find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, this next guy that I'm going to talk about is somewhat situational. This is a guy that I want to talk about because I think he would be great. But 19 is probably too high in the first round, and 53 is way too low in the second round. So this is my trade down from 19 or trade up from 53 player, and it's Shamar Stewart. Ranked as the 93rd edge rusher in 2024 on PFF, Stewart seems to hit all of the boxes that the Bucs are looking for. Size, he's got it, 6'6", 290. Speed, got it, a 4.59 40 with a 1.58 10-yard split. Strength, length, pass rush moves, he's got it. Stewart wowed at the combine, getting a perfect 10.0 RAS score and having literally all of his measurables right in line with Myles Garrett. Now, does that mean he's going to be Myles Garrett? Of course not. But he has the building blocks to become a very, very feared edge rusher in the NFL. That said, he's not a polished product, and that's why he's not being talked about with some of the other first-round products or prospects. He has some of these little things in his game that need to be fixed or even taught to take him to the next level. Things like hand placement, how to better use his speed and explosiveness in order to gain an advantage. He only had 2 sacks a year in each of his last 3 seasons, but 33 hurries last season. To be honest, probably a third of those hurries become sacks with proper technique and execution. He's going to have exactly that with his coach as well as the rest of the edge rusher room. Guys like Hassan Reddick, guys like Yaya Diaby, even guys like Cansey and Vea and Levante getting in his ear and helping teach those things if he comes to Tampa. He has the skills and the attributes that you are looking for, but it's about molding him into a guy that can reach his full potential, because what the Bucs don't need is another guy who can get hurries and not turn those into sacks like they had with Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. You have to see the ability and know that he does still have a higher ceiling that he can reach than he showed at Texas A&M. Next on my day 2 list is see, I'm tripping up on it again. Oluwafemi Oladejo from UCLA. Oluwafemi Oladejo. We talked about him on yesterday's show with David Shealy, and he's another guy that has some versatility to him. He can become a big part of the defense, but we're talking about a rotational role right out of the gate. 6'3", 250 is in that Ezeraku size arena, which is a little bit small, but Oladejo had 7 sacks last season along with 19 hurries. A 4.7 40 Oladejo is still pretty raw. He did not start as a full-time edge rusher until 2 games into last season. So shining in that role with such little experience tells me that there is a long way to go before he realizes his true potential. You got Larry Foote, you got Todd Bowles there to bring him along, help him build off of last season. There's a really solid chance that Oladejo turns into a formidable pass rusher in the Todd Bowles defense, but you have to continue to nurture what he showed last year. And being a 7-sack guy off the edge when you only played at that position for about 10 games, and that's not just 10 games for last season, that's 10 games of your life. And to do it for UCLA and have the results that he did, sky is the limit for Oladejo. It's all about molding him into an elite level pass rusher. Next up for me is JT Tuimoloau from Ohio State. Back-to-back guys that I trip up on their names, but Tuimoloau was the 31st overall edge rusher in 2024, and he's an absolute force on the edge. 6'5", 275, fits a little bit more in a 4-3 defensive end than he does in a 3-4 edge rusher, but that doesn't mean that he can't stand up and he can't rush from the outside linebacker position. He's not a speed guy. He is a I'm going to overpower and bowl you over kind of guy. Though Tuimoloau brings the same kind of versatility as Pierce, where he can be part of the edge rotation. There can also be opportunities for Bowles to put him on the line with his hand in the dirt so the Bucs can have 5 insanely good pass rushers on the field together in those passing situations on those third downs in order to create chaos for the opposing quarterback. 15 sacks last season, 26 sacks over the last 3 years for Ohio State, and he had 22 hurries in 2024. Only a 12.1% pass rush win rate, but he's also one of the best run stoppers in this edge class. He's not going to whiff on tackles. He is going to be a reliable guy that can be on the field in all situations as he continues to develop. My biggest takeaway, honestly, from Tuimoloau is that he needs to play with more confidence. When he gets beat or taken out of plays, it tends to be when he hesitates or takes too long to process what he is seeing in front of him. If he's in a situation where he takes off with confidence and says, I don't care who's in front of me, I don't care what the situation is, I'm winning this rep, then that's when he could really let loose. He plays so much better in those situations. So playing time and production will continue to build that confidence, but in the meantime, he is a great option to add to the rotation of edge rushers with the caveat that he can also get in the mix with Cansey and Vea there along the defensive line. And then the last day two guy that I want to touch on here is another Ohio State product, and it's Jack Sawyer. First off, the optics of drafting a guy nicknamed Captain Jack already has Buccaneers written all over it. Like, the social media team is going to have so much fun with that. But Sawyer isn't just a solid edge rusher. He is a ball hawk. Bowles talked about wanting ball hawks at all 3 levels. Sawyer hits on that in a big way for that front of the defense. He was PFF's 12th ranked edge rusher in 2024, 18th ranked edge rusher in 2023. 6'5", 260, Sawyer had 10 sacks and 38 hurries last season to go along with 6 batted passes, an interception, 3 forced fumbles, 3 fumble recoveries, and 2 fumble recoveries returned for touchdowns. This guy has perfected the art of the scoop and score. I talked about it when he spoke with us at the Combine about how he's taught himself how to be able to do that, and it's all about patience and not rushing into it. You have to secure things one at a time in order to take that turnover and turn it in to 6 points for your team. Again, a little bit more of a down lineman, but definitely shows the athletic ability to be able to stand up and be an outside edge rusher. A 4'6", 40, has smaller arms, which may create some issues, but Sawyer's gone up against NFL caliber tackles throughout his 4-year career at Ohio State, and he has fared pretty darn well. In fact, it forced him to be more well-rounded in order to make up for a couple of his weaknesses. He seems honestly like the safest bet after the day one guys are gone. He's going to be consistent. He's going to be reliable. He has a really, really high floor, but that consistency, that reliability may only get you 5 or 6 sacks in a season. But his ceiling is that he is a double-digit sack guy. He's also going to create turnovers. He's going to turn takeaways into points. This is a guy that can drop back and cover a running back out of the backfield when he needs to. And I know that drives Bucs fans nuts when Bowles has edge rushers drop into coverage, but he is going to use that on occasion, and Sawyer can actually do it. The rest of my edge guys to look for coming up in a little bit. That is next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. From three-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Right now, the Oklahoma City Thunder are the favorites to win the NBA Finals at plus 175. followed by the defending champion Boston Celtics at plus 190, the Cleveland Cavaliers at plus 490, and the Los Angeles Lakers at plus 1,500. I'm not betting against the defending champs. The Celtics, to me, are the best NBA team from top to bottom. Any player on that roster can drop 30 on you in a heartbeat. My money is on the Celtics to be back-to-back champs. But don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Wrapping things up here on today's episode of Locked On Bucs and some day 3 names that I want you all to know about. And I'm going to start with David Walker out of Central Arkansas. This guy isn't getting anywhere close to the amount of buzz that he should. Part of it is his size, and then part of it is the fact that he's coming out of Central Arkansas. He's 6'1", 260. That's that Donovan Ezuraku arena of size. But he was PFF's number 1 edge rusher in 2024. He was their 20th ranked edge rusher in 2023, and he was their 2nd ranked edge rusher in 2022. 3 straight years, top 20 finishes out of 840 plus players. Now, to be fair, I expressed my concerns about the competition that Mike Green went up against at Marshall and why I would be a little bit hesitant and a little bit weary about my expectations of Mike Green. And those same concerns are more than valid when it comes to Walker. However, we're not talking about pick 19. We are talking about day 3 of the draft. A pass rush win rate of 21, 12 sacks last season, and 37 sacks over the last 3 years. This guy is crazy athletic. He had a RAS score of 8.63, where his explosion was great, composite ability was good, and speed was great. A 4.69 40 with a 1.65 10-yard split. He has found a way to use his size, which is small, to his advantage. And he has the speed and the arsenal of moves to make bigger tackles look foolish. Look, I know the only reason that any of you that are watching or listening have even heard of Central Arkansas is because that's where Scottie Pippen went. But this guy is going to be a really interesting day pick, or really interesting day 3 pick that could make a team very, very happy and make a GM look like an absolute genius. Again, when we're talking about the 4th, the 5th, the 6th round, you're looking for guys with upside. You're looking for depth. You're looking for special teams. But if you can snag a guy like this that had this level of success despite where he played, and he can turn that into similar success in the NFL, we are talking about going back and looking at one of the biggest steals of the NFL draft over the course of the last 5 years. From Boise State, Ahmed Hassanin, again, a little bit smaller, 6'3", 270, ranked 67th among all edge rushers last season. A 7.08 RAS score, not great. It's not terrible. Hassanin ran a 4.77 40, but he had a 1.69 10-yard split, 10 sacks last season, 14 sacks in 2023, and he brings a pass rush win rate of 16.1. He's actually more solid in run defense than he is at getting after the quarterback. So this is a player that can develop into an every down guy. He has success getting to the quarterback, but he's even more reliable when it comes to run defense. And that is something, of course, that we know that the Bucs hang their hat on, is being so solid in run defense and making their opponents one-dimensional. He doesn't have a ton of moves, but the few that he does have, he tends to use pretty effectively. He's one of those high motor guys that coaches love because he's never out of a play. He will chase down someone the entire length of the field if that's what he feels it's going to take to make a play. He also shows top-end strength that translates into his ability to shed blocks. He just needs to be more consistent about it. Then, without getting into a ton of depth, a few more names that I'd like to throw out there. Tyler Batty from BYU, Savion Jones from LSU, and then Quandarius Robinson from Alabama. And I find Robinson interesting. And I know we're talking about another Alabama edge guy. They drafted Braswell last year, but Braswell is one of the reasons that Robinson didn't get a ton of playing time. It's because he was buried on that depth chart. But he was PFF's 32nd ranked edge rusher in 2024, but he has such little experience. He's got the prototypical size that you're looking for. He has the speed that you want, but he is a very, very raw prospect. A pass rush win rate of 19 over the last 2 seasons. It was 24 last year. And like I said, he's just been buried on the depth chart over the course of the last couple of years. But this is the guy that you take the flyer on when you're looking for depth and in special teams in that 5th, 6th, 7th round range. And he's very intriguing, but there's a reason that he's going to be available on day 3. And there's a reason a lot of these guys are going to be available on day 3, even late into day 2. But that also speaks to the depth of the talent of the draft. And that is something over the course of the next 8 days, as this show drops on Wednesday, I'm going to keep hammering, because I want everybody that's just now tuning in, getting ready for the Bucs draft, that hasn't been in every day or has not heard all of these different shows and all of these different guys that I've talked about. I want you all to make sure that you understand. Do not overreact to what player or position they take in the first round. Wait, take a breath, take a pause, and see how this plays out. Because they are going to get a guy in the 3rd round that last year would have been a 2nd rounder. They're going to get a guy in the 5th round that last year would have been a 3rd rounder. There is a ton of starting caliber players in this draft, which is why I'm going through all these positions, starting with edge rusher, to get you guys familiar with some of these names. Now, I know my luck. It means I'm going to go through all these edge rushers, all these corners, all these safeties, all these linebackers, and the Bucs aren't going to take a single one. And we're going to be talking about some of these guys for the first time next weekend. But I want all of you that are interested in the draft, that are excited about the lead up to the draft, that are going to sit down and watch it over the course of 3 days, to remember some of these names, to be able to look into some of these guys and say, okay, I see what James was talking about. I see what he likes. I see, some of the criticisms that he had. I saw what he saw, or you can disagree with me wholeheartedly. That's fine too. Just do it respectfully. We can have a conversation about it. But coming up on tomorrow's show, I am going to start talking about the corners. We're not going to have, I might talk about 2 day 1 guys. I might talk about 3 day 3 guys. I'm going to talk a lot about the guys that are going to go on day 2, because I feel really strongly that that's where the Bucs are going to address corner, is in that day 2 range, with so much talent there. But that is going to do it for this episode. Please check out everything going on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at @JYarcho_Bucs. Make sure that you are subscribed on YouTube with those notifications turned on, as well as wherever you get your podcasts. And trust me, you're going to want those notifications turned on for draft weekend, because I will be going live to react to day 1 and day 2 of the NFL draft. We will have live shows on both of those nights. So make sure those notifications are on so you can join in on the live chat. And then, of course, if you would like to help support the show, become a Locked On Bucs insider, one-on-one texting with me, go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes. If you don't want to be an insider, that's fine. You can support the show by leaving a 5-star review. I greatly appreciate it, and it helps other Bucs fans find the pod. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. I want to thank you so much for joining me right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.